Have you ever made a vow so heavy it felt less like a promise and more like a set of chains? We're raised to believe that loyalty is everything, that keeping your word proves your worth. But what if that very loyalty became your undoing? Some vows aren't noble, they're cages. They begin with pride and love, but over time, they carve away at who we are, forcing us to trade freedom for duty, joy for guilt, and peace for a storm we never asked for. Tonight, you'll hear one such story about how the hidden weight of a vow can reshake a life, fracture relationships, and leave scars long after the words are spoken. I've always been told that a person is only as good as their word. In my family, commitments weren't just agreements, they were sacred oaths, unbreakable, etched in stone the moment they left your lips. At first, keeping my vow filled me with pride. Friends admired my loyalty, and I admit I like their recognition. But slowly, what started as pride twisted into dread. The problem with vows is that they don't account for change. Life shifts, people grow, circumstances alter, but the vow stays frozen, demanding obedience. I remember lying awake, heart racing, realizing that the very thing I thought defined me was quietly draining me, yet breaking it felt unimaginable. It's strange how a single vow can ripple through every corner of your life. Relationships were the first casualties. I turned down chances to bond with friends because my commitment left me preoccupied. Friends drifted away after I canceled one too many times. Dating was nearly impossible. How could I tell someone I was bound by a decision made years ago? Opportunities slipped through my fingers. I once turned down an overseas offer, a childhood dream, because leaving would mean abandoning my word. Watching others chase their dreams while I stayed frozen was its own kind of torment. Resentment crept in, not just toward myself, but toward others who lived freely. The people who praised my loyalty were never the ones sacrificing with me. That's when the erosion began. Not all at once, but like water wearing down stone. I stopped recognizing myself in the mirror. My reflection showed someone tired, hollow, shoulders slumped under invisible weight. I had abandoned hobbies, passions, even small joys, because they didn't fit within the boundaries of my vow. I wasn't living my own life. I was living in the shadow of words I once spoke. Strain became constant. I woke with knots in my stomach, nights stretching long under waves of overwhelm. The guilt was relentless. Guilt for wanting freedom, guilt for resenting the vow, guilt for even imagining breaking it. Perhaps the worst part was how normal it began to feel. I convinced myself that sacrifice was simply what good people did. There comes a point where loyalty stops being noble and starts becoming a prison. I remember the exact moment it shattered. A friend looked at me and said, "You don't laugh the way you used to." Her words cut deeper than I expected. In that instant, I realized my vow had stolen not just opportunities, but my essence. And I saw others too. A colleague trapped in a loveless marriage because of the word forever. A friend stuck in a career she hated because she'd sworn loyalty to her boss. I saw myself in them, and I hated it. The worst part, society rarely applauds breaking free. Try to leave, and judgment follows. But you gave your word. It doesn't matter that the vow is destroying you. Breaking it is seen as weakness. And so many remain caged, not by iron, but by expectation. Breaking free wasn't simple. It required admitting I was human, with limits, and that my value wasn't tied to endless sacrifice. The first step was communication. I told those involved I could no longer uphold the vow. My voice trembled, but the world didn't collapse. Some were disappointed, but most simply nodded. I realized then the cage was never locked. I had been holding the key all along. Setting boundaries came next. I learned to say no without apology. I stopped over-explaining. Slowly, I reclaimed joys I'd abandoned. I rebuilt relationships rooted in honesty. And most importantly, I rediscovered who I was, not bound by an oath, but free to live. Before we close, let me remind you what this channel stands for. The stories you hear here aren't just mine and not just about one person's weight. They represent countless hidden struggles, the unseen sacrifices, the quiet battles people fight alone. This channel exists so none of us carry those loads in silence. Here, the comment section isn't for hate or blame. It's a community space to share lessons, reflections, and encouragement. Together, by respecting each other, we turn private pain into collective growth. So if you share, let's keep it kind. No insults, no judgment, no anger. Only compassion, care, and understanding. When we talk about vows, most people picture something noble: loyalty, honor, devotion. From childhood, many of us are told that keeping our word is the ultimate proof of integrity. And yes, reliability matters. But what happens when the promise itself no longer fits the life you're living? That's where the danger begins. We cling because we fear being seen as unreliable. We cling because our family or society drilled into us that a person of their word never backs down. We cling because we're terrified of being judged as selfish if we walk away. But here is the truth. Loyalty without context is a trap. Life is fluid. Circumstances shift. The person you were years ago is not the same person you are today. Holding yourself hostage to words spoken long ago doesn't make you noble, it makes you a prisoner of your past. And it's not weakness to admit that, it's self-awareness. How to recognize a burdened promise. If you're wondering whether the commitment you hold on to is healthy or harmful, ask yourself, number 1, do I feel constant weight as if this vow is draining instead of uplifting me? Number 2, have I sacrificed parts of myself, passions, relationships, peace of mind just to uphold it? Number 3, do I stay out of fear of judgment rather than genuine desire? Number 4, am I losing who I am because of it? Number 5, if I imagine letting go, do I feel relief more than guilt? If most of your answers lean toward yes, it's time to step back. So let's talk about solution. Steps toward re-evaluation. 1, honest reflection. Sit quietly and ask, why am I still holding on? Is it love, fear, obligation, habit? Naming the reason strips it of power. 2, speak it out. Share your burden with someone you deeply trust. Often, hearing yourself admit it aloud brings clarity and support you didn't expect. 3, communicate with those involved. If others are part of this promise, honesty is essential. Yes, it's uncomfortable, your voice may tremble, but clarity is kinder than silent resentment. 4, adjust or release. Sometimes you don't need to abandon the vow entirely, you can reshape it. Set new boundaries, reduce its hold, or redefine it in a way that allows you to breathe. And if it truly no longer serves you, it's okay to step away. 5, replace guilt with growth. Instead of asking, am I betraying my word? Ask, what am I creating space for? Redirect the energy you free up into passions, relationships, or simply resting. It's the hardest step, self-forgiveness. Letting go of a heavy promise can feel like letting yourself down. You'll likely wrestle with guilt, even after making the right choice. That's because the voice in your head is still echoing the lessons drilled into you. Never quit, never break your word. But here's the reframe. Breaking free from a destructive vow is not betrayal. It's survival. It's choosing to honor yourself in the present, rather than punishing yourself for the past. And yes, it takes courage. Sometimes more courage than keeping the vow ever did. So, friends, here's a practical exercise for you. Tonight, take a piece of paper and draw 2 columns. At the top of one, write what it's costing me. At the top of the other, write what it's giving me. Now fill it in honestly. Does the weight match the value? Or are you pouring life, time, and health into something that only gives back guilt? If the cost outweighs the benefit, you have your answer. You don't have to act immediately, but you do deserve to rethink your path. If you take one thing from my story, let it be this. Vows are powerful, but they are not prisons. Commitment matters, but not at the cost of your identity, your well-being, or your chance to live a life that feels like yours. It is not selfish to admit that something which once made sense no longer does. It is not weakness to put down a weight that is breaking you. And it is not betrayal to choose peace over chains. At the end of the day, your worth is not measured by how tightly you clutch old words. It is measured by your courage to evolve, to adapt, and to create a life that reflects who you are today. So if you're carrying the burden of a vow that feels heavier with each passing year, consider this your permission to exhale. You are allowed to rethink it. You are allowed to let go. And most of all, you are allowed to begin again.